All right, welcome everybody inside the den here at Fox 5 Studios. Mike Davis, Sound Off Sports. I am with the guy who's going to lead the Runnin Rebels back to the promised land. This is the guy. Listen, I just want to tell everybody at home right now, UNLVtickets.com, because you might not be able to be a booster. You might not be able to, help out the NIL, but you can get season tickets right now, and you want to be able to say, before things get cooking, that you were back with this team, this program, this organization, as Josh Pastner is with us, the new head coach of the Runnin Rebels. Josh, this is, Coach, this is a dream job. Your presser, I've never seen so much juice from a coach. I was like, I'm ready to dive for these 50-50 balls for you. Why is this a dream job for you?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me. And you're right. I got to plug this right now. UNLVtickets.com. UNLVtickets.com. Get your tickets now. We need Thomas and Mack filled up to the brink. So please get your tickets. But you're right. Look, I'm a basketball junkie. And what you see with me is what you get when you're talking about the press conference. Yeah. I mean, you
couldn't sit still.
No, and I still can't sit still. What I think the most amazing thing, and I'll get to why this is my dream job in a second. I think the most amazing thing is that I am going, since I got the call of the job, the press conference, and to this day, I've literally gone nonstop, very, very little sleep, and I haven't conked out yet. Like, I haven't sat down at a restaurant and just fell into my food yet. So I think that's an amazing accomplishment to this point.
And you got a whole family. You got a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
We got all these transfer portal things going on. You built a staff, and you're still Energizer Bunny.
Absolutely. And so let me just tell you this. Growing up, obviously knowing about the UNLV basketball team back in the 80s and 90s and watching Coach Tarkanian and that whole group and as you know, it was kind of the coolest of the cool.
Yeah.
And the amount that they were at the level that they were winning at. I mean, there was a stretch where they were winning 88% of the games, which is surreal in sports to win that type of level of winning. And then me being at the University of Arizona as a player and then as assistant coach, knowing how great this job is. Obviously, the rival between Arizona and UNLV, and a lot of it was because of Coach Olson and Coach Tarkanian, but those two were the best of the best.
You called them juggernauts in your presser.
Those two were juggernauts.
Yeah.
It was the powerhouses of on the West Coast. And then me coming here for 30 years for grassroots basketball. My father, Hal Pastner, is involved in grassroots basketball and running tournaments. And I actually played in the May Fisher Classic, which was on the UNLV campus. And the gym's no longer there. The tennis centers took over. I coached in it. And then being here for recruiting. So I always knew about this job. And I've always said it's a sleeping giant. It's an incredible job, the incredible success that they've had here. And I got to pinch myself that I'm sitting in that chair. And it's not my job. I've always said this is Las Vegas's team. This is the city's team. This is all the former players, the former coaches. This is their program.
You called yourself a gatekeeper.
I'm the gatekeeper. I'm just trying to move it forward, re-energize, kind of ignite the fan base, and get it going. So, but when I was able to put that polo on with UNLV, man, the back of my hair on my neck stood up, and it was pretty cool.
But let me understand this, because what I love about you is you're all in. I'm an all in guy too. I know about Sid Pastner. I got notes on Sid Pastner.
You're a high level guy, man. You're high level.
But you're all in like me, which I love. So after Georgia Tech, after obviously Memphis, you're doing TV with Turner, ESPN, Peacock, NBC, all this stuff. I'm sure there was interest in Josh Pastner for a long time with a lot of jobs. And were you just kind of saying, thank you so much for the call, but I'm not really interested? And then finally this UNLV, you called it, I think, a waking giant. Like, was that really the situation when you got the call and there was interest and all that stuff occurring?
Well, here's what happened. I love television. And
you're good at it.
And I had a lot of people, the bosses at those networks that were high level were like, they really liked me. And so, which was a great thing, Right. And I did have other opportunities to be a head coach during that time. But every time I was like, I had this pit in my stomach. I was like, because I wanted to coach again. I love coaching. I want to, and I was like, I just don't think it's better than television, and it's better than the opportunities that I have. And I just kind of had that pit, and I didn't feel right about it. When the UNLV job opened, totally different. And they reached out to me to interview. I never 1 second had that pit in my stomach. I had such enthusiasm, excitement. I wanted the job. I remember I was doing the tournament at Turner. I was on fast break, and I remember that, during the time that was part of the interview process, or they were calling and following up on different calls and talking to different candidates. And I was trying to manage, trying to sneak out to take some calls when they were calling to ask certain questions, because I was in the middle of television. In the middle of TV, you're there especially during the tournament. It's a long time. So it was just an interesting time. But I didn't have that pit. And it was more of just everything was such enthusiasm and excitement. And I mentioned that I think this is a sleeping giant. Yeah. But the trees just need to be kind of rattled a little bit.
But here's the truth, and that's why I love you. We've never had this much juice inside the den, and that's because Coach Pastner's here. But let's talk about this, because the truth is, I'm 33. I grew up on the East Coast. Since I've been here for 6 years, yes, Vegas has always been an entertainment capital of the world. And you mentioned in your presser, it's the entertainment capital of the world. It's now the sports capital of the world. But since I've been here for 6 years, it's been about the Raiders. It's been about the Aces. It's been about the fact that the Athletics are coming. It's about the Golden Knights. It's not about UNLV basketball. But the fact is, you've gotten to work quick. I mean, if we're talking about not sleeping, let's talk transfer portal before we get to your whole career and everything that happened as a youngster. Because when I was 13, you went to Temple Beth Torah. I went to Temple Beth Shalom. At 13, I was just worried about, Zakev Katon, Haftarah. You're doing a scouting service. So we're going to get into all that. But let's start with what is happening right now, because the transfer portal, you are embracing this new era of college basketball. You understand it. You were in the 97 Arizona Wildcat championship team. You sent out handwritten notes to every coach when you were in high school. In 5th grade, you knew after watching Lakers Celtics, you wanted to be a coach. In high school, when you're playing, the JV coach gets fired and you put your name in the hat and your resume so you could be like a Bill Russell as a player coach in high school. So you always wanted to be a coach, but to have somebody who respects the game, who knows the process from Calipari and Lute and understands the old but understands the new.
That's right.
That's what we need, baby. That's why you got to go to UNLVtickets.com, because let's go through some of these guys. Miles Che, UC Irvine. A lot of big programs wanted him. He's now here. We have a transfer guy from Alabama. We got people who were coming from Arizona. We got a 7-foot, 230 guy named Emmanuel Steffen who's going to be here. We got guys who were overlooking Kamani Hamilton. Kentucky wanted him. Cincinnati, Indiana, NC State, Arkansas, Georgia. These guys are coming here now. What are you doing? What is the special sauce? Because I get the juice from, I got you. But tell everybody at home what's going on and why we got like 10, 12 guys now who are going to reignite this team.
Well, first of all, let me just say this. You talked about all the different teams here,
yes,
with the Raiders and
the Knights
and the Knights. I mean, just everybody. Yeah. And there might be an NBA team coming into Vegas, which is probably going to happen in the next few years. So let me talk about that first. I'm a guy that looks at the glass as not half full.
No, it's
but overflowing.
Yeah,
I look at it as overflowing. So instead of looking at that as a negative, I'm looking at that as a positive. I'm like, man, what a great selling point to say, XYZ's here in this city. It's the epicenter of the sports world. It's the epicenter of the entertainment world. I mean, when you think of Las Vegas, it's worldwide. And so I'm the other way thinking, man, I think this is great to sell and it's awesome. Yeah. And so I think that's been part of a great thing of our sell in that. Now look, we've got to, in our recruiting, and a lot of the things that we were able to sell in the recruiting is look, how we want to play, style of play, what we want to do, what we're about, all the great things in Las Vegas and the surrounding areas. But I also want to say, as much as we talk about, people think, and this, Vegas being maybe glitz and glamour, it's really a blue collar town. Yeah. Like, it's about putting your hard hat on, your working boots on, rolling the sleeves up. And I've got to be out there as much as I can in the trenches to try to re-energize everyone to get excited about their team, not my team, their team. And then when the product's on the floor and they're watching their team play, and of course, look, you understand because you've been in sports for your whole life. Winning solves everything. But more than that, they've got to have such enthusiasm and excitement and appreciation for their team the way they play. And look, there's going to be nights where you're not shooting the ball well. There's going to be some times where you struggle, have an off night offensively. You can never not have an off night effort-wise. You can never not have an off night diving on that floor for that 50-50 loose ball. So when that person who's paying that money for that season ticket, or that person who's giving money for an NIL, or a family of 5 or 6 or 4 is coming to for an entertainment value, they want to see where that loose ball's right there, and they're diving 2 hands, 2 feet for that ball, because winning that possession is more important than breathing. That, to me, is what people want to see. They don't want to see anyone playing entitled. They want to see people playing with such appreciation and gratefulness on every single possession. That's how you're going to get the fans back.
James, give me the one shot right now. UNLVtickets.com. Do you hear what this guy is saying? I mean, you want to be here for these games, but here's the thing, Coach. Since Tark, that's been lost. How are you the first guy that I can see has that juice, that energy, that passion? I think it's because you have a special makeup, and I want to go to the beginning with you. So let's talk about this. So 13 years old, okay, you grew up in the Kingwood area of Houston. Right. Hal Pastner, we already spoke about him a little bit. High top hoops, Houston hoops. He's big in the game of basketball because his children, you have a sister who is great as well at basketball. So he really took to basketball because you guys knew you wanted to do that as young kids. But at 13, ladies and gentlemen, when you're a Jewish kid at 13, you have a lot of pressure, a lot of anxiety. You got to go up on this bima. You got to start reading the Haftarah. You got to read from the Torah. You got to have a special parsha. You got to do all these things. You got to do a bar mitzvah project. While you're doing all that, you had a bar mitzvah, right?
Well, look, all those things you mentioned.
Yeah.
The doing a scouting service and trying to evaluate, like I'm 13 at the time, and you're trying to evaluate players, because here's what happened. When everyone was in the gym, okay, and everyone was in the gym, and so when we play a game, because it was at that age, most people when the game's over, they'd all want to go to the mall or just kind of hang out, go somewhere. I wanted to stay in the gym all day long. I was a gym rat. I loved watching basketball. So what happened is I would be in the gym and watch these games, and I started just writing down, like, hey man, I saw player A, player B, player C, and do these. And so what happened was I developed a scouting service. It was called the Josh Pastner Scouting Service. I started sending it out to college coaches.
At 13?
At 13. A lot of the coaches called back and wanted to order the scouting service. My dad had to tell him he was just doing it for fun. I wasn't doing, I was doing it more to just being around the game. And so, and going back, when I was in 5th grade, I remember watching, as you mentioned, the Lakers and Celtics on one of the national networks. And I remember turning to my father. I remember vividly telling my dad, I want to coach. If I can't stand, I want to play in the NBA. I want to play in the NBA, but I said, but if I can't play in the NBA, the next best thing to playing was coaching. And that's kind of where all that hit. He said, okay, and that's where the Houston hoops started. Then he got into Division Sports, Bigfoot hoops, now doing high top hoops. Now, all along, I thought I was going to play in the NBA. And I wrote letters, as you mentioned, to every single Division I, Division II, handwritten.
To every D1.
Over 1,000 personal handwritten letters. Now, I thought I was going to play in the NBA. I worked my tail off. Like, I was a good shooter. I had this vision. I get to the University of Arizona. Within about 12 seconds, in the first pickup game I was in late August, I knew my career was over. When I recognized the speed, the athleticism, the size, the length, me being able to stand in the corner and just shoot threes wasn't going to do it.
But wait, real quickly before we get to that, because you're also coaching AAU at 17,
Houston hoops, yep.
All that stuff. But
boys and girls.
But you're saying that you wrote handwritten letters to every Division I school, and only Lute Olson was the one guy who got back to you?
Well, here's what happened. So I sort of recruited myself to everybody. So I wrote all these letters trying to say I wanted to be a coach. I'd be a great positive influence. I thought I was in my mind, I thought I was a good player. I could come play for you still, all those type of things. So I wrote all these personal handwritten, not like some form letter, like personal handwritten letters. And obviously back then there was
a different day.
Yeah.
Just even finding an email address was there's no email. So it's like,
this is in the mid 90s, right. 95, 90, whatever, 95 around then. So there was no email.
Right.
You're writing, you got to put the stamp on and all that good stuff, and handwrite the envelope. And but there were some schools that had reached back to me. I mean, but one of them was Arizona. It wasn't like thousands. It was a few schools. And one school of them was Arizona. And I think Coach Olson felt, hey man, this guy could come watch film, work guys out, and it wouldn't count against the rules. And I could do all those things as a player, and that's kind of in his vision. Obviously, his vision was I was never going to be a player there. My vision was. You even
wrote in these letters you weren't expecting any playing time.
Right,
You really had your head on straight.
I wanted to coach. I really wanted to coach.
Now, my brother, which is fascinating, another shorter Jewish kid from Philadelphia, he played at LaSalle as a walk-on for Coach John Giannini. So what he would do as a walk-on,
Dr. G,
right before NIL, is he would be scout team. He would do all those types of. So it was a very similar thing. And then a lot of those guys develop into grad assistants and all that.
Was he on the team that went to the Sweet 16?
That was the year before him. He came in the next year.
Gotcha.
So
and Dr. G, I know him, very great guy, and he's doing television now.
Right, exactly. And so Big Five, all that stuff. It's a big stuff. Your dad has spoken a lot about that. So I love that. So then you go to Arizona, and I mean, even while your dad's doing stuff with Houston Hoops, a lot of these guys, David Boston, who played in wide receiver in the NFL, Kendrick Perkins, a lot of great guys. Actually, your dad did a huge service for a lot of players who got there's a lot of great attention.
Actually coming here, I was on the phone with Steven Jackson, and who I would go down to Port Arthur every weekend, Port Arthur, Texas. Every Friday I would go down there to pick him up, and then bring him back to Houston to practice with the Houston Hoops, and then go back Sunday, drop him back off, and then come back every weekend. We do that. I mean, Steven basically lived at our house. Marcus Spears,
right?
As you mentioned, Kendrick Perkins and David Boston. So we've had a lot of mix between the basketball and the football side of it, all those type of things. But the program, the Houston Hoops, has it all started really just for an opportunity for my father to be around me more, not ever thinking he was going to evolve into what has evolved into.
Let's talk about Hal Pastner for a second. Is he gonna be at some of these games?
Of course.
Okay, good. Because Hal, before we started the program, we were talking a little bit. I said, how's
my dad? How's my father?
How's your dad? Yeah. He was a ball boy for the Philadelphia Warriors with Wilt Chamberlain growing up in that area. Tell us how close he was to Wilt, because you were telling me a little.
So and at that time, when they said ball boy, back in that time in the 60s, it was more like a manager. They use it. Ball boy wasn't like the little kid just run. He was kind of involved with the team, with the back in the day with the 76ers. And so interesting story there. He was there with Wilt Chamberlain. And he and Wilt Chamberlain were very close. Yeah. And my dad would tell me stories when Wilt would drive him. Wilt's car didn't have a front seat because his legs were so. Wilt was 7'2", 7'3", and he had really long legs. And so he couldn't sit in the front seat. And cars back then, they didn't have the specially made, so they literally had to take the front seat out. He had to sit in the back to be able to drive. During timeouts, he would drink 7-Up. And he always wanted my dad to taste 7-Up first. He just maybe had a little bit of a paranoia that someone was trying to get him. And the coaches did not know he was drinking 7-Up. It was all between my dad and him.
So he would taste this 7-Up.
Yeah. My dad and him were really close. And I mean, there was, in fact, my father and his father taped the 100-point game of Wilt Chamberlain reel to reel. Starting in the second quarter, was around the 30-point mark because they thought it was going to be something special. They taped it reel to reel. They gave a copy to him and his mother. They gave one back to him. My dad, the Hall of Fame, the Naismith Hall of Fame, has asked my dad for that copy. But my dad, at the time, when you're not thinking, and he has so many boxes and things. He had this storage. And my dad's just he's my guy. I mean, but he's like at this huge storage of things, and he's just never gone through it. And he said maybe one day, and he'll go through it, but he just hasn't,
So he's got the historic 100-point.
Yeah, which is crazy. But anyway, so that's that. And then Dr. Jack Ramsey took over the team, and he brought my father in and said, "Hey, we want to keep you here, but you got to cut your hair." My dad had really long hair. And my dad, during that time period, my dad said, "No, I'm going to keep my hair." So he said he ended up leaving the team and just moving on and doing something. Yeah,
but you're living it out for him. That's such a great thing. And his dad, Sid, we got to, as an Eagles fan, a diehard Eagles fan. Your grandfather.
My grandfather, I called him Grandpa Sid. My dad's dad was a diehard Philly sports fan, but he was a huge Eagles fan, and missed 2 games. One was
season ticket holder.
One, and my dad would tell me that his dad would take him and the kids, him and his brother, and my dad had a brother and a sister, and they would get there like 2 hours early in the freezing cold
tailgate,
because they couldn't, they had to be there so early, they would in their freezing, but he was just such a diehard. Missed 2 games. One was due to the war, which he was in the military, and then another one. I think, I don't know if it was if he got sick or whatever it was. But then he ended up. My dad and I were watching the Eagles Cowboys on a Sunday afternoon, and we got a call that my grandfather, his dad, had died in the seat due to a heart attack. And they actually engraved his name on the seat. That's how much he was a Philly sports guy.
Do you see the devotion and the dedication in the Pastner blood? I love it. So then you get to Arizona. You're with Lute Olson. You're now a walk-on. I mean, you win a championship in '97. You glean
which
so
I thought was going to be easy every year. I thought, you win that year, it's going to be, this is how it's going to be. Then you realize you don't take it for granted.
But you were always a special guy. Lute Olson even said, I don't have to worry about contacting the janitor because Pastner's already going to be in the gym and it's going to be cooking and stuff. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, you said Lute Olson ran the best practices. He took a lot from John Wooden. As you were, growing through your career, now that you have this new job, what are the things you remember about the late, great Lute Olson, the things that you're going to implement most?
Well, look, I mean, I say this. Coach Olson was sort of as you mentioned, he really learned a lot from John Wooden. Him and Coach John Wooden were really close, and he spent a lot of time with Coach Wooden. So his practices were like a clinic.
Yeah.
Now, Coach Olson was an elite evaluator, just an elite evaluator of talent, where a lot of guys that he got were, I like to say, they were 0-star recruits, and they ended up through his developing, through his eye of watching, became who they became. And the laundry list of guys of being in the NBA that played for Coach Olson. So he was able to adapt, to change, to be flexible, and I thought that's one of the things that made him so good. And in this era that we're in today, you better be willing to change on the fly, be willing to adapt, be willing to, I call it wearing loose fit clothing, because everything's moving in real time so fast. And so now I don't think Coach Olson would be real happy in this climate of paying players and all that, but things have changed. This is the reality of it. So he was a master in practices, on his practice. It was like a clinic every time that you stepped on the floor. And that's, now look, I worked for him. I worked for John Calipari, 2 elite coaches in the Basketball Hall of Fame, but they both had different ways they did things. And both different personalities. Now, I can't be Lute Olson. I can't be John Calipari. I've got to be Josh Pastner. I got to be comfortable in my own skin.
So at 31, because you ended up spending 8 years at Arizona. I have so many questions for you. But at 31, you move at 30. At 30, you're working with Calipari at Memphis. And then at 31, you're thrust into this position because Calipari, Coach Cal, goes to Kentucky. At 31, you know that you have to, be yourself. You have to embrace who you are. But how do you think you were able to, because the way I look at you is you got the basketball junkie, but then you also got the CEO. And I think that's what we need. And a lot of people don't want to just admit that, but that's what you need. You need to be able to be a guy who boosters you got to sell. You got to be able to embrace both of those things. And I think the best coaches that we're seeing right now in the climate, and even before the NIL climate, are the ones that have succeeded are the people that have crafted that balance and found that happy medium. So at 31, did you understand and grasp all that stuff? What was going through your head when you're living your dream? You're 5th grade, you want to be a coach. You're doing all the right things. You're on the bench. You did the walk-on stuff. You're working as an assistant. Now at 31, you got this job for the first time. Are you like, holy, what was going through your mind?
Yeah, well, look, and you make a good point, and it's the truth. At a level like a UNLV, it's a massive job. And look, I love coaching. I'm a basketball guy, and I love coaching, being on the practice floor, but there's so much more to just being the head coach. As you mentioned, you're literally a CEO of an organization, and when you're a CEO, you just can't sit in the gym. As much as I love coaching and being in the gym and working guys out, there's so much because you've got to be in the community. There's decisions that have to be made. You've got to go out and do different things. You've got to raise money and got to get people excited. You got to sell your vision. So you are a CEO. But yes, when I took over, which was another massive program. You got to remember when I was with Coach Cal in his last 4 years at Memphis, it was the most wins in the history of the NCAA in a 4-year time period, the most ever. So when he goes to Kentucky,
I mean, this was for me just being from South Jersey. Milt Wagner, DeJuan Wagner.
Yeah,
it was crazy what was going on at Memphis.
Well, when he went to Kentucky, I was going to Kentucky. Not for 1 second was I thinking about being the head coach at Memphis.
Yeah.
Everyone would call me at that time, be like, man, what's it like working for Calipari? I said, the guy that follows this guy is just ridiculous. Like, you got to be a crazy man to follow Calipari.
Right.
I was on my way to Kentucky. Not for 1 second did I think about getting the Memphis job because, they were trying to go get every different,
You're
10 different
31.
coaches. And they were trying to get all these guys and they all got raises because they didn't want to follow Calipari. Well, eventually they had to hire a coach, and I ended up getting hired. It was the story how it happened was surreal, and I won't bore everybody with it, but it was really surreal. Anyways, I get the job at 31, as you mentioned, and it was just to think about it, and I was by myself because everybody went to Kentucky, the entire group, the staff, and the players. Like we were involved in signing John Wall, Eric Bledsoe, DeMarcus Cousins. I mean, we were loaded. And we had a chance to go forward. So everybody left, the staff, the administrative assistant, everybody. And so I'm by myself for about a month trying to run the Memphis program at 31 with nobody and no players. I had no players. And trying to take that over after what you're following. It was surreal. I remember this. I remember sitting on a couch doing an interview. I swear to you, this is a true story. This was about 2.5 weeks in because I was by myself, trying to figure all this out. And I remember doing an interview. It was in the mall. It was on this. It was a morning show, and they were talking to me, and I hadn't slept. And I don't know all I was thinking was when they were asking me questions, man, I just want to go to sleep on that couch right there. I don't know what I said I'm lucky I didn't say anything crazy, but I was so tired. All I kept saying was thinking about, I just want to go to sleep on that couch. That's how intense that part of that job was. So, but then listen, we settled down, we got it. We had great success there, went to Georgia Tech, had great success there, did television, and then now here. And so I've enjoyed the thing of this. And like you said, the climate has changed, and doing television, I've had so many coaches tell me, because I know a lot, obviously everybody, but they've all, how much they hate the profession right now. They're just the negativity about the profession. I love it. I think the setup and the scenario, what it is right now, is awesome.
I think it's built for you.
You know why?
Think it's built for you, for a Josh Pastner. I really do.
But you know what? Because when back in the time at Arizona or Memphis or Georgia Tech, you're spending 3-4 years of your life recruiting, chasing prospects. And then you're coming down to their senior, they got 5 visits, and then you got to wait, and then they tell you at the end if you don't get them, you just spent 3 to 4. Now this is streamlined in 2 to 3 weeks.
You did this with John Shire.
That's right.
You were trying to recruit John Shire.
I lived with John Shire.
Another great Jewish boy, who now obviously we see all the success he's had.
3 of the 4 coaches in the Final Four
Golden,
were Jewish, but
Bruce Pearl,
and Shire,
And Shire. Did you have a bar mitzvah?
Well, here's the thing. But here's the thing. So hear me out.
Yeah.
When I was going from Arizona to Memphis to Georgia Tech, all the spots that I was there, the investment I did both emotionally, time-wise, sometimes even financially, in like at Memphis, and what was the dealing with the Hillel on campus. I thought that was so important.
Yeah, I even saw a picture of you with doing because when you're younger and you're 13 and you get your bar mitzvah, you sort of, and then you're playing in sports, you lose it a little bit. Does that make sense? You kind of you start going in your own world, and then when people,
you start thinking about sports, and then games are on weekends and
Right.
and on Friday, and you just when I was back after I got done, being there at Arizona, I kind of reconnected. If that made sense.
I saw pictures of you with Tefillin and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: is that I think Hal, your father, and what he set forth with AAU and that hustle and the way that's what we need in college basketball landscape today. And that's why I think you're the perfect person built for this. And that scouting service you did at 13, it's still working, baby. Because let me tell you, the guys that you have coming in are the guys that have the pedigree from these top tier programs, big recruits coming initially out of high school that maybe didn't fulfill their potential in their other stints. Guys who should have got more playing time at an Illinois, guys from Iowa, guys who, Kamani Hamilton, this is a guy, Kentucky, Cincinnati, NC State, Arkansas wanted him. These are guys coming from big programs. Nas Cunningham, University of Alabama, is a top 50 recruit coming in to college. So these are guys now that are going to, maybe realize their potential under a guy like you. Who are you most excited about? What's the feel of I know you coaching the team, there's going to be energy, there's going to be that run and gun, there's going to be diving for 50-50 balls. But give us a little taste from a basketball standpoint of some of these guys we have coming in.
Well, look, you're really starting from ground zero because it's a brand new team. So I thought we did a good job of evaluating and targeting, and I put emphasis on two things I felt in the portal was shooting guys who, especially on the perimeter, guys who are good shooters. And then and toughness.
Yeah.
I think those two things really, and I try to get some guys who've been around winning as well too. I thought that's an important part to understand about winning. But look, the hard part now is going to be when you get them there in June, in the summer, and in the fall, is gelling the team together, because now you got all new pieces. You got to fit them together. You got to have the chemistry on the floor, and so that takes time. That's going to take a lot of time to do that. What I would also say is, more so than any individual player, because look, I was very clear with everyone that we recruited that there are no guarantees. Like, you're going to have to earn everything that you're going to get. And so I said, when that ball is jumped and that ball is tipped, because I'm very loyal to the players, always loyal to the players, always. And still to this day, of all the guys I coach, but when that ball is tipped, my loyalty shifts to UNLV. And they want to win.
Right.
And so I've got to play the best players on the floor. And who's going to be the best on the floor? It doesn't matter about NIL. It matters which players are going to be able to produce and get the job done to help us win the game and win that possession. And so that will be earned through practice. That will be earned through time, not given through anything.
I'm so excited because 14 years coaching at the collegiate level, 2017 ACC Coach of the Year, Conference USA 2013 Coach of the Year, 4 conference tournament championships, 2 regular season championships, 7 postseason appearances. This is what's so exciting. The proof is in the Pastner, ladies and gentlemen, because let's talk about this. The Mountain West. You coached at a high level in the ACC. You coached at a high level in Conference USA. The Mountain West, it's realigning. It's shifting soon. There's so much room for this sleeping giant, this waking giant for dominance in the Mountain West with a guy like you bringing in top-tier pedigree recruits where there's teams leaving the Mountain West. There's going to be a lot of years where I think we're going to be Mountain West champions, those automatic bids competing for Final Fours and championships. What's your vision for UNLV? Because you were in TV, you're back, and now you're ready to dominate.
Well, a couple things. One, look, the Mountain West is a great basketball league. It's a great basketball league. There's great coaches in here. There's great players. So I understand, again, being a basketball guy, this is a really good basketball league. I mean, look, not this past season, but this past season, they almost had the same number of bids as the ACC. The season before had more. When I was coaching in the ACC, like you had like 6 Hall of Fame coaches,
it was nuts.
and about 2 more are going to be in the Hall of Fame. Right. So it was a great. When I was in the ACC, like literally every time you stepped on the floor, there was a pro. Everyone had these pros from 2 through 4. Anyway, but so I have great respect for the Mountain West. And now, look, obviously after this year after the 25-26 year, the Mountain, some teams are moving because of conference realignment. What I would tell you is this. you just want to win the game in front of you, because the way conference realignment is, you never know, it's year by year. So we want to be competing for Mountain West championships. That's what you want to do. That's the first step.
Right.
And you got to get really good players. You got to get your team right. But it's not going to be easy. I mean, this is a hard league that has really good coaches, that has really good players, and I've evolved over time, more so much than worrying about the opponent. We've got to do our job. We've got to focus on UNLV.
Right.
And what can we control? Those are the things we mentioned earlier. There's going to be some nights where we're not shooting the ball well, we're not playing as well, but the effort part can never be off.
But you understand from every vantage point, every perspective, what it takes. Let's talk about championship DNA. Like you said, you go to Arizona, you're a walk-on, you think you're winning championships there. So what was it about that team that you have learned from a walk-on all those years ago in college, that DNA, that championship DNA that a team needs to possess, that little thing that puts them over the top? We saw Duke. I thought they were going to make it happen this year with that. But there's something. There's a little thing. So what is that ingredient?
Well, and going back to Arizona, we won the championship in '97. We were the best team in the country in 1998. We lost in the Elite Eight to Utah. Rick Majerus, they went triangle and 2 on us. We should have gone back-to-back. It was devastating. We would have been a rarefied air to get to back-to-back. But anyway.
That's more how it goes.
Yeah, that's how it goes. It's hard to win the tournament, to win 6 games. I mean, it's just, you got to get a little lucky along the way. Ball's got to bounce your way. You got to get a call here or there. And that's just part of the deal. But at that time when we won the championship at Arizona, now look, we had 4 NBA draft picks. 3 of them were lottery picks. Miles Simon, who was the most outstanding player, was a second-round pick. And we had great bigs who just did their job. But all 4 guys could shoot the ball. And I always say this, I think the hardest thing to coach is when you can't score. When you can score, that's awfully hard to coach. But how do you get there? And so my whole thing is, we talk about wanting to be back to the Runnin Rebels, not the walk-up Rebels, not the slow-down Rebels, not the dribbling Rebels. We want to be the Runnin Rebels. You can't run if you're not getting stops on the defensive end. We've got to be great defensively. We've got to hang our hat on the defensive end. I think that is a big DNA deal, as you talk about the words DNA. It's what you do on the defensive end of the floor, because defense travels, whether it's on road games or whether it's at home games or when you're having an off night, to be able to get stops and to be able to go in transition, to be able to get some easy baskets. You have to get stops. If you're just trying to change baskets or trade baskets every time and taking the ball to the net, you're not able to run as effectively.
So the running has to be propelled by
the defense
and
getting
the
stops.
Outlet pass, the transition, the fast break. It's all manufactured from defense.
It's all manufactured from defense. And you look at some, like, for example, you look at the teams who have won it, the national championship, or the teams who've had the elite success, sometimes because of, and again, I've been in television, you understand television, you've been in it longer than I have. I mean, fans, they what gets the highlights is going to be offense. What do people see all the time is offense. A lot of fans like to see offense. But if you really study the best teams, even though they're good offensively, they are really good defensively. And the ones who are really good offensively and not so good defensively don't end up having the success that they have.
Because some nights the shots don't fall.
That's right.
And then you're bounced out. And you got a lot of guys with some length. You got guys.
Length's important to get you. Yeah.
You got a lot of stuff protecting the rim. There's going to be a lot of great stuff going on. But listen, everybody, you got to go to UNLVtickets.com. You want to get season tickets right now, because the party is just starting. Right?
So let me just say this, and I like to get that camera so I can look at right here. Okay, a few things.
Yes.
Look, UNLVtickets.com. If you want to give to the NIL, we can, because listen, that's the way of the world now. I mean, we can talk about
I might start doing Uber Eats. Yes, because I love you so much. I'm so bought. I'm going to start driving Uber just to give to the NIL.
I mean, it's part of the deal now. I mean, you can try to shy away from it, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Also, let me just say this: any ideas, thoughts, suggestions? How can we make whatever it may be about, or whatever, because this is your program. Email me, Joshua, JOSHUA .Pastner, PASTNER, at UNLV.edu. My email's on the website. It comes to me directly. I'm a hands-on guy. If you don't get a response from me, You didn't send it to me. Joshua.pastner@unlv.edu. If you want to buy tickets and I can help you get to the right person, whatever it may be, any ideas, thoughts, suggestions, send me an email. Let's go Rebels. Here we go.
You don't even need to do the handwritten letter style like Josh Pastner. You can get them right through
Go right
email.
to me.
I love it. This is what we need right now here. A few last things before we let you go. Your dedication, your devotion. I mean, 34 games you played at University of Arizona as a walk.
No, 42.
40, did you?
Can I tell you this quick story?
Yeah.
Right, 30 seconds.
Is it true 9 baskets in 3 years?
Yeah, but let me just tell you this.
Yeah.
I was 42-0 as a player, undefeated as a player, and I never lost a game. Now, I was only in games that we were up 20 or 25, and everybody wanted a Pastner game because it was great for the bars, the restaurants, the city. Let me just tell you this. My senior year, we're playing LSU. We're at LSU. We're #1 in the country. Arizona goes to Baton Rouge. It's a noon game. It's 11 a.m. game on national network. So it's 9 a.m. Tucson time. And our whole team's a bunch of West Coast guys. And they have a tiger there in Baton for the LSU Tigers in the cage. Our guys look scared. It was crazy.
An actual tiger?
Actual tiger. LSU just pounded us. We were down 30. We were #1 team in the country. We just got pounded. With about 5-6 minutes to go in the game, all anyone wanted to know was Coach going to put me in the game? Because I started lacing my shoes up and break my undefeated record. And he did not put me in. The next day when we traveled back, because at that time you're not flying, charter, you're doing commercial. We flew back to Tucson. The next morning, I'm walking back on the plane. Coach Olson has these huge hands, grabbed my thigh as I was going past him, and he said, he says, Josh, I want to tell you, I apologize for not putting you in the game, but I wanted to be able to tell your kids and grandkids that you left here at Arizona as an undefeated player. That's the kind of man he was to think about that.
I love that. The great Lute Olson. No, listen, it's not just Lute Olson, the late great Lute Olson who loves Pastner. Jay Wright said beautiful things about this guy. Coach K, Calipari, everybody loves you. Before we let you go, I have a few quick questions for you. First of all, we got a gift for you. We got a gift in here. I just want you to open this up. Open this up. So I want to find out what the deal is with this. So what's the deal with the rice?
Here's
it's just more and more.
I love rice. So here's the thing. First of all, I'm 47, but I feel like I'm 27.
Yes.
I'm in the best shape of my life, but I love to eat. I love to eat, and I love to eat rice for whatever reason. Last night, I was at a restaurant.
Yes.
I ordered this big thing of rice. I ate that. Then I got a beef dish with more rice. So I'm just a guy that can eat rice. In fact, when I was at ESPN, they would have, when we got those long days, they would come in and give you the long
like craft services.
Well, yeah, they would give you for everyone there because it was 14-hour days. They would cater in food, so it would be like one of these days where they had different things and it'd be rice. I would just take the rice on the plate, go eat it all, go back and take more rice, like 5 servings of rice just on my plate. For whatever reason it is, I'm a rice guy, so I appreciate this. Now I'm living at a hotel, so I don't know if I can eat, but I will save this, put this in my office, and find a way to eat it.
Okay, we're gonna make sure you do that. A couple last things. I just want quick yes or no's because I'm curious because I know a lot about you. You've never had alcohol.
Correct.
Never smoked a cigarette.
Correct.
Never had a soda.
Correct. Never had a carbonated drink, so never had a soda.
No coffee either.
Never had a sip of coffee.
As a coach with this much, what are you running on?
Yeah, on life. If you go to my X handle, Coach J Pastner.
Yeah.
On the top there, I talk about every day is a gift, every breath is a gift, every heartbeat is a gift. I don't just say that. People can say that and think and not really mean it. I really live by that. Like every second is so precious, and I'm a guy that believes that lives by that. Of gratefulness and gratitude just for life in general. So yeah, I've been able just to go, and it's just, you ever seen Jerry Maguire's where the guy Dickie Fox, and he wakes up and he says, great day to be alive, or whatever his exact word. That's kind of how I am just moving forward on everything that we do.
Listen, there's a different energy in the den today having Coach Pastner here. This is going to be big time stuff. We're so glad to have you here in Las Vegas as head coach of the Runnin Rebels. There's just so many great days ahead, so many great years ahead, and the proof is in the Pastner, and we're so excited.
That's an NIL deal opportunity right there. I love that.
I mean, we can do so much stuff with this NIL. I'm going to get to work on it as well. UNLVtickets.com. Go get season tickets. Contribute to the boosters, the NIL. We want to be a part of the revitalization, the reigniting of the Runnin Rebels here in Las Vegas. It's all thanks to Coach Josh Pastner. Josh, thanks for spending so much time with us, getting
thanks
to know
for having
you.
me here. Yep.
It's been a
Mazel
pleasure.
tov to all your success too.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Listen, Hal and Marla.
And mazel tov to your brother.
Yes, we'll talk about that too. Hank Davis played for Coach G, did the whole thing. Didn't go in the coaching though. He became a good Jewish boy and became a doctor, unfortunately. So, I'm a few rungs down.
You know what? That's might be even better than coaching to be a doctor. You're saving lives. You're doing a lot of things, and so I get it.
You're going to be saving a lot of lives here for us as well. Coach, thanks so much. And guys, make sure you go to our YouTube page. Check out everything we got going there, Silver State Sports and Entertainment, as well as Fox 5, and go to UNLVtickets.com. Coach Josh Pastner. Thanks so much, Josh.
Thank you.